Hello everyone, right, we've got some more transfer chat for you today as Celtic close in on the end of the summer transfer window, and shock horror, we still have, let's say, a number of players to be signed. You can kind of pick your number, to be honest. A lot of work still to be done as we approach the final 3.5 days of the window. It's the Celtic way. So where are we with transfers right now? Well, this video is going to consist of me simply throwing out a number of names that have been linked with us, a lot of them over the past 24 hours. Some of them, like Odsonne Edouard, I will throw out very quickly, but we'll get on to that. Other ones I may spend a little bit more time telling you what is happening right now because the interest seems more genuine and the transfer seems more likely. But let's start with Matt O'Reilly. Let's just get this out of the way. His move to Brighton was confirmed yesterday. Here's a photo of him in his new team's colours. Yep, that's long enough. Thanks. He was a great player for Celtic, Matt O'Reilly. Loved watching him. I think the thing I'll remember about him most was probably the way he started this season. After all of the interest this summer, you know, we've spoken about so much all over pre-season, before pre-season, to be honest. Despite all of that going on, he continued to play really well for Celtic, and actually I think he was playing his best football he played for Celtic right before he left the club. So I think that says a lot about him. I know he spoke a bit about the original interest from Atletico Madrid, I think at the start of this year, and how he was affected by that. But that just kind of summed up Matt O'Reilly. I think he was always learning, always improving. And Brendan Rodgers spoke about that as well at his press conference after the game on Sunday. Really spoke highly of Matt O'Reilly. Said even up until the last minute at training on his final day, he was doing extra work and he was one of the last ones to be off the training pitch and all of that stuff. So, yeah, he gave us so many amazing moments, so many big goals last season, late goals, derby goals. Who can forget the, was it a Panenka at Ibrox? I'm not quite sure. He certainly passed it down the middle. Very nice. Maybe you remember the assists a bit more than the goals of Matt O'Reilly, though. You think about the unbelievable pass he had for Kyogo against Hearts last season. The pass for Jota in the 4-0 derby win was perhaps the best pass he had. The one for Kyogo against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League last year was kind of similar in a way, that kind of inside of the foot pass. And produced some amazing moments for us. And I just want to thank Riley McGree as well at this stage, because had he not, fancied life in Middlesbrough rather than a club like Celtic, we would never even have probably heard about Matt O'Reilly, or at the very least we wouldn't have got to see him at Celtic. So thank you, Riley. Thank you, O'Reilly. And Matt O'Reilly did have some nice things to say about Celtic in his Brighton unveiling interview yesterday. It is hard. People don't realise how big the club is until you get up there. It's a real family club, and I was made to feel welcome very early on. It's a very unique place in terms of the passion the fans had. Is something I had never experienced before. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It is still a little bit emotional speaking about it because I had such good memories there. But like I said, it just felt like the right time for a new challenge. He always came across as a lovely guy, and was a lovely guy when you spoke to him. Even when I made him pose for awkward photos like this, gave great answers. I got to know his family a little bit too while he was at his club. His dad came up to me when I was in Leipzig with my mates for the Champions League game a few years ago, and introduced himself as Matt O'Reilly's dad, and said he'd been watching 67 Hail Hail it was at that stage, and got to know his dad and his mum a little bit. Met them a few times, and they followed him around everywhere and will continue to do that. And I guess like you always look at the player that's leaving Celtic, and Matt O'Reilly's obviously going to miss Celtic. I genuinely believe Matt O'Reilly will miss the fervour of the Celtic support and that kind of passion and the pressure as well, because you don't get that in many other places, certainly not at Brighton. I know you get the quality of football and all that stuff, but it's not the same at a club like Brighton. in terms of the passion of the fans and all of that stuff. So he'll definitely miss that at his next club. But I think his family will as well. I got the impression they absolutely loved Celtic and have only really good things to say about Celtic. So, yep, quite simply, thank you, Matt. And just to round off this section, here are some of his best bits in the hoops set to Adele's Someone Like You. Right, what's the story with incomings? Well, we've got Alex Valle. Yes, Valle, as the likes of Pantone, Eric and GMAT pointed out yesterday. Guys, I knew that. I was only testing you all and you passed. So, well done. He's still going to be joining. That's certainly the chat. I reckon that gets announced today. I don't know, I just get the impression it might. Season-long loan from Barcelona, of course. And I think it'll be interesting to see exactly where he fits into our plans at left-back. Is he coming in to be the number one left-back? I mean, for example, this weekend in the derby, I don't think there's any chance Valle starts that game. It'll be Greg Taylor. But going forward, does Brendan Rodgers view him as someone like Alexandro Bernabe, brought in to, provide a bit of competition for Greg Taylor and possibly, take that place from Greg Taylor? I know it's not as simplistic as that and they'll both have a part to play. Or does he view Valle as being the player who's coming in to play left back in our Champions League campaign? I think it's going to be interesting to see that. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of player Valle is as well. I will be trying to find out more about him as we go forward. That goes for all of our signings. I'll be doing interviews with people in the know about all of the signings we make. Like I did with Eric Sviatchenko and Kasper Schmeichel earlier this summer. I'll probably hold them back till next week, so obviously we're going into an international break next week and there's so much going on this week, so it makes a bit of sense to hold a bit of that back for next week, but that will be coming. So yeah, that's Valle. Nick got in touch to say about Valle. This guy is solid. I'm as big a Barca fan as I am Celtic and I rate him highly. Surprised he was not retained instead of Gerard Martin. Is that alright, everyone? He can play left back or right back. Watch the Barca pre-season highlights in America. He has an amazing assist from right back position. Yeah, I did see that assist. I think it was against Real Madrid when he was on the right wing and put it across for the guy to score. That's what an assist is, Hamish. So yeah, I don't know quite why he's playing it right back or if that is an option going forward. I would certainly hope that he's been brought in as a left back. Elsewhere, the chat, if we move into midfield, is that the club want to sign both Arne, Engels and Mateusz Bogusz. Yes, you heard that right. Both players. That's certainly the intention. Whether it happens, I'm slightly less hopeful. I hope you'll understand why that's the case. Yeah, one Matt out, possibly one Matt in, and Arne as well. I reckon Engels is actually the O'Reilly replacement. I know that Bogusz can play on the wing. He can play behind the striker. He can also play at the false nine position where he's tended to play this season for LAFC. So he seems like a bit of a, I don't want to use the phrase utility player because I always think that sounds a bit more of a phrase or a term you'd use for a defender. He's maybe just a player that can play in a number of positions and can fit in different areas and give us different options in different matches. I get the impression that Engels is the Matt O'Reilly replacement. I know there's a suggestion and the feeling seems to be that he's a bit more defensive than Matt O'Reilly. I think we're in danger of reading a little bit too much into that. Like Engels will still have a really good assist record and chance creation record. He just maybe is a little bit more defensively minded, but I don't think it's a case of Engels is going to come in and play the number 6 with McGregor moving forward next to Hatate. I don't see that at all. I could be wrong, but I get the impression the ideal midfield Brendan Rodgers has, for our first Champions League game, for example, would be something like McGregor, Engels, Hatate, and then you have guys like Bernardo and Bogusz just really adding to that and playing games here and there and really offering us something big. I think that's a properly exciting 5 in midfield there, especially when you look at how Paulo Bernardo played on Sunday. So I'm really hoping this is what happens. The latest from Sky Sports News, I'll read this out. Celtic have made a formal bid for Los Angeles FC attacking midfielder Mateusz Bogusz. The clubs have resumed talks following the MLS side's 3-1 Leagues Cup final defeat to Columbus Crew on Sunday, where Bogusz assisted Olivier Giroud's goal. Negotiations for Bogusz are ongoing between LAFC and Celtic, who are looking to bring in 2 midfielders before Friday's transfer deadline. Sky Sports News revealed on Monday that Celtic have also made a £6.5 million bid for Augsburg's Arne Engels. So bids have been made by Celtic for both Bogusz and Engels. We really just need to sign these 2 players, and we have the money. If we manage to get them both in, I think it will be really good business, and we'll be happy with that midfield going forward. General consensus around Engels is he wants to come and play UEFA Champions League football. We can offer that, so that should hopefully make a deal easier. We just need to get to what Augsburg want for him, and hopefully it's not something ridiculous. Right, also a transfer update from Scott Burns at the Daily Record. Plenty of interesting wee nuggets of information in there. He says we're ready to spend the majority of the money we received for Matt O'Reilly, with Engels and Bogusz both being targeted. Says we have also opened talks with Lazio about a possible loan for their winger Gustav Isaksen. He says that Brendan Rodgers wants to bring in another wing option. Again, that may be Bogusz because he can play on the wing. I'm not sure the Isaksen stuff is likely to happen. I know there was a bit of suggestions about it yesterday morning, a loan deal with like an obligation to buy. I think it was something ridiculous though. The price that was quoted in the obligation to buy, was it something like £15 million or that, like something Celtic wouldn't actually be likely to pay. Lazio paid Mitchell $10 million for him last year. So this one just feels a little bit off. There's been reports that Isaksen wants to stay at Lazio and fight for his place as well. So I'm not sure this is going to happen, but it does seem to suggest that we're after a winger as well. Interestingly, Scott Burns reckons that if we do sign a winger, it could open the door for Lewis Palma to move on during this window, which I do think is quite notable because that's the first mention I've actually seen or heard of Lewis Palma potentially leaving the club. I didn't really think that was an option. I still don't think that will happen before the end of the window. I don't think we will sign an out-and-out winger. But maybe it just suggests that Rodgers doesn't really fancy Lewis Palma. Yeah, can't say I massively blame him, to be honest. I'm not Palma's biggest fan. I think we can do better in that position, even if it is someone to vie with Daizen Maeda for first team football. So I don't think Isaksen will come in. I don't think Palma will leave. But what about Odsonne Edouard? Because this was the one that got everyone going yesterday. And this comes from Bobby Manzi, Crystal Palace reporter at NewsQuest, who posted to say, exclusive, understands Celtic are interested in a reunion with Crystal Palace striker Odsonne Edouard. The Frenchman could become available with a deal nearing closer between Palace and Arsenal for Eddie Nketiah. The Daily Record reporting that a move back to Scotland is not currently in Edouard's thinking. We also have some quotes from Brendan Rodgers throughout the summer that just tell me that this isn't going to happen either. He did say on Friday, Brendan Rodgers, that he was basically happy with Daizen Maeda being our third choice striker. And earlier in the summer, he also said he can't really function with 3 number 1 strikers. So Kyogo, Ida, Edouard. Earlier in the summer, Rodgers said it's very difficult for a club of this size to have 3 number 1 strikers. You can live with 2 because we play so many games and the specific nature of the games, then we can change it about. 3 is very difficult. So Odsonne Edouard is a non-starter right now. The only way I could see him becoming an option before the deadline is if Kyogo was to leave. I think at that stage, and obviously hope that doesn't happen, doesn't seem like it's going to happen with Man City, but you know, there clearly is some sort of interest there from City, despite Guardiola suggesting they probably wouldn't sign a striker. If Kyogo was to move on, I think at that stage Edouard would potentially become a pretty obvious option for Celtic, given his situation at Palace, and given at that stage we would be looking for a number one striker to go alongside Ida. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I really like Odsonne Edouard. I know a lot of people don't because of the way it finished for him at the club. Personally, I don't buy into all of that. I just think that Edouard was a great player for Celtic. I don't really have any bad feeling towards him at all. I really liked him. Not sure I'd take him back or anything like that, because I think these things happen and you move on to new targets. I don't think it's going to happen anyway. One thing that does seem likely to happen, Gustav Bielka to 20 on loan, Eredivisie side, of course. The chat is that once that one goes through, we'll ramp up our search for a centre-back. I know I've said this a few times over the last week. I'm quite concerned about this centre-back hunt, what we're going to end up with in that position. I think it is critical that we find someone to partner Cameron Carter-Vickers for these Champions League games. And yeah, I'm a bit worried about who that is going to be. Yeah, it's up to Celtic to prove me wrong and get someone proven in that position. So yeah, I think we're looking at Valle, left back, clearly. The club want to sign both Engels and Bogusz, and a centre-back as well. I reckon that's what we're looking at between now and the end of the window. What would that be? 4 players. Question is, would you be happy with that? Would you feel you wanted more, given how slow the start of the window, given how slow all of the window up till about yesterday has been? Would you be content with that for the transfer window? As I say, having sorted the goalkeeper situation, Schmeichel, really good signing, I think. Sinizalo for the future. Brought Bernardo back, brought Ida back. I know it took a while, but we still brought those two back from last season's successful team, and added left back, Valle, centre back, whoever, and replaced Matt O'Reilly with 2 players potentially. Would you be content with that? Okay, I'm going to switch things up a bit on the channel for tomorrow's video, because the draw for the UEFA Champions League phase is on Thursday afternoon. And really, I just want to do one big video tomorrow explaining everything about this new UEFA Champions League format, the draw, how it's going to work, the overall competition, the dates that are involved because they've changed as well, prize money maybe as well, and much more, all in one big video, so you can know everything about the new UEFA Champions League before it gets properly going with the draw on Thursday afternoon. So basically I'm asking you that if you have any questions, any areas of the new format that you just can't quite get your head around and you want me to explain, please just let me know by firing a question in the comments to this video, and I will do the research into whatever you ask and let you know in tomorrow's video. And we'll just really use that video to all familiarise ourselves with this new format, because there's still things that I don't quite get and I'm going to look at for the video tomorrow ahead of the draw on Thursday. So let's do that. Let me know below if there is anything. I'm also trying to get the channel to 10,000 subscribers by, let's say, the end of the month. Yeah, I think if we get to 10,000 subscribers, I'm sure someone told me we'll score 10,000 goals against Rangers on Sunday. I don't know whether to believe them, but you could always give it a go and we can find out on Sunday, eh? And you can do it just by clicking there in the middle of the screen or tapping, whatever you want to do. Woo!